question is if the criteria has to be same criteria for different countries or not. For instance, if we take ESG, let's take the G. If we decline G in Japan, in Italy or Nigeria, inclusion may be very different things. So do we have to look at this criteria as really world and common criteria, or to decline same criteria in different countries in different ways?
We need to contextualize them.
Context, yes.
We need to contextualize them. Putting it in a simplistic way, the value of a liter of water in a country which has plenty of water is very different from a country in sub-Saharan Africa. And so the impact measurement effort at Harvard is taking into account this contextualization. So we're heading to a world where the ISSB, the International Sustainability Standards Board, is standardizing quantities of CO2, of water, in inverted commas, of diversity, and so on, where the SEC is pushing companies to disclose on a mandatory basis all of their impacts, and the EU has pushed investors to disclose the impacts of their funds. And so that's why I say the train has left the station. So the missing piece of the puzzle now is the impact valuation to go with the ISSB's standardized quantity metrics. Now, the ISSB is part, I'm sorry for all these initials, but it's part of the foundation that is responsible for financial accounting across the whole world, except for the US. So between the ISSB and the SEC, you're covering the whole world. If you look at what happened in the 30s, after the Wall Street crash, companies realized they had had no transparency on profit. Every company picked its own accounting principles, and there were no auditors to verify the numbers. And when, after the crash, investors started to push for transparency and talked about generally accepted accounting principles that would apply to every company, people said, how can the same set of principles apply to every company, irrespective of size and sector? And by the way, if you can do that, it'll still be the end of American capitalism. We're in the same place with impact measurement today. People are investing in ESG without knowing 40 trillions worth, without knowing what impact they're creating. And companies and others are saying, you can never measure the impact. This is all a mirage which is going to fade away with dusk, you know? The reality is, as Harvard has shown, and others, the Value Balancing Alliance, which is based in Frankfurt, has also shown, if you go about it methodically, we really can measure the different impacts companies create. We can measure their CO2 emissions from their operations, their employment practices, levels of diversity, and we've already done that for several thousand companies and shown the economic cost of lack of diversity. We can measure their product impact on health and on the environment, and we will be publishing figures before the half year on their supply chain impact. So we've proved that it is feasible, but governments haven't yet understood that they need this. They need this because they have constrained budgets because of COVID, and now on top of it, bigger defense spending in many different countries. At a time when social issues are going to worsen because of higher inflation, increases in the cost of living will hit the most vulnerable yet again. And so governments have here the ability to bring the financial markets to help them to achieve their priorities. So governments should be pushing for this transparency.